As we get deeper into the college basketball offseason, is Michigan State still at the top tier of the Big Ten? And, hey, Coen Carr, could he potentially be a lottery pick? All that and more on Locked On Spartans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week here right on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your thoughts on Michigan State basketball's offseason. We're going to get into all that. Which transfer is the biggest question mark? Can Coen Carr be a lottery pick next year? And hey, what non-conference game are we looking forward to the most? But it's not just me talking all show. No, friend of the program, Greg Waddell of Sleepers Media, he joins the mix. And yes, we do kick it off with actually an uncomfortable conversation. The news of the day, Michigan, yes, they get the top transfer. So being the rivals, being in the same conference, we kick off the conversation there. But then, yeah, it's all Spartans after that. So let's get with our guy, Greg Waddell, right now. Folks, it's time to talk basketball for the first time in a long time with near dear friend of the program and also sensational podcaster and YouTuber over at Sleepers Media. It is Greg Waddell. And Greg, you're looking extra chipper today. There's a little wry smile on your face. And I know that's not because you like coming on this show. Please, this is merely community service for you at this point. The news of the day here in college basketball. Yaxel Luxembourg, or whatever his name is, number one transfer. Not going to the NBA. Nope, he's going to Michigan. So you, as a Dusty May disciple, go ahead, answer the question. Where are you going to put your 2026 national championship tattoo? Which body part is this going to land on, Greg? Good to see you, by the way.
It's great to see you. So I thought this entire time, truly, that Yaxel was just playing everyone. I've repeatedly said on our channel that I just had a horrible feeling and he wasn't going to come to Michigan. So it's good to know I'm not the only one who can be wrong, Matt, because I love coming on your show. You're wrong about this. And God forbid we do have a good season at Michigan next year.
Sure.
I'm just going to make another fake banner like the Big Ten tournament behind me. So there's room over here. We're good.
That's right. Let the record show that that's the only time I've ever been wrong on this show. So I got a galaxy brain take, and maybe this could be just, cope, as the kids call it here. But I had an outer space take last year that Michigan football winning the national title was the greatest thing to ever happen to Ohio State football because they were able to fundraise all sorts of money that night and load their roster with a dynamite team. Greg, were the coffers over at Michigan so upset by Michigan State winning the Big Ten that they said they got to load the money cannons? Was that the only reason why they're spending big here? Can you just say yes, even if you don't mean it? I would really like to get this one.
Sure,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Good looking out.
Do it. Yeah.
Thanks.
No, weirdly enough, though, there's an element to this that's different than how you're laying it out that I do think Michigan State had a hand in here. And the element that is true is that the only reason the Michigan program is where it is right now under Dusty May's tutelage is how Juwan Howard went out. And I do think one way or another, Michigan State had an element of that. Like Tom Izzo certainly didn't take it easy on Juwan Howard down the stretch in the final year. And I know his years kind of overlapped with some in-between years for Izzo, certainly not the brightest years of his tenure, but I don't know. There wasn't much hope that Michigan would be even as good as Michigan State or anyone in the Big Ten that matters when Juwan left. And luckily they nailed the hire. That's really all this is. All of a sudden, Michigan has a bunch of financial resources they didn't have in the past. Yep. Who knows if they would have been there when Juwan was there, if he was better at fundraising. I have on-hand accounts that said he was horrible at it. He didn't care about it and didn't try at all.
Wow.
So Dusty's been crushing. I'm happy, obviously, but we'll see where it goes from here because this is a very year-to-year sport right now, as you know.
So you're welcome. Basically, is what I owe you right now. Not a congratulations. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of saying congratulations right now, even with how much I like you, Greg. I think you're a great guy, a friend of sorts, but I just can't do that right now, even in the middle of the offseason. So I'm sorry. It just is what it is. We had a conversation, not me and you, but it was Joe Jackson, another great follow on Twitter. Where does Michigan State land in the tiers of Big Ten basketball? And we said going away, number one, the top tier, okay, that is Purdue. Okay, and then it's everyone else. Michigan now on that first tier with Purdue. Do you think they're on that second tier with Michigan State right now? Like, where do you see the whole like top, I guess, 5-ish teams in the Big Ten right now at this point?
So I think there is a shakeup after Yaxel's been added to Michigan, and it might be maize and blue-colored goggles. I'm willing to own that. Cart and I talked through this morning. I still have enough respect for Purdue, bringing back 2 All-Americans and so many pieces from a national title runner-up 2 years ago. They have to be alone at number 1, and I don't think Michigan's done enough to get there. But I do think Michigan's done enough to separate from the rest of the conference. So I would put Purdue in tier 1 by themselves. I would put Michigan in tier 2 by themselves as a team that should be top 10 in the country. And we'll see from there. It's kind of a crapshoot. I think tier 3 is where you get to UCLA, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Illinois, teams that there's very reasonable reasons to believe in them. But there's also very obvious things you could nitpick with each of them. And I think the reason I elevate Michigan up a little bit from that, Yaxel covers up so many of Michigan's weaknesses. I mean, without him, there was a huge hole. You were worried about playmaking falling entirely on Elliot Cadeau's shoulders, who we know he's an up and down guy. You were going to have to ask a lot of shooters that are young to just play really early in their careers. And Yaxel's probably going to play 35 minutes a game and just kind of cover up everybody else's weaknesses here. So that's how I would tier it right now. Purdue alone, Michigan alone, and then a crapshoot of 4 teams from there.
So I will get the train back in the tracks here, guys. I am aware this is Locked On Spartans. Sorry, but I would just be remiss if we just didn't talk, about the not just Big Ten news of the day, but the national college basketball news of the day here, where, in Spartanland, that is a very relevant matchup that we got to keep our eyes on, even if the regular season tips off in seemingly 20 months from now. But Greg, let's talk about Michigan State here, because we got a 3-pack of transfers over here, and none are really jumping off the page as like 5-star guys necessarily, but I still like what Michigan State got. But of these 3 guys, which one do you think is the biggest question mark here? Because everyone's going to be making a jump, whether it's, amount they have to play or just the league that they're playing in. Like Divine Ugochukwu, man, not a great shooter. He's a plus athlete, though. I do wonder what kind of a role he will have at Michigan State. And then you got Trey Fort, which, hey, great news. 37% from 3 the last 2 years over Samford State and Mississippi State, but that drops to 27% over the last 2 years against top 100 opponents. And then Kaleb Glenn, of course, 40% three-point shooter. He's not only here for his 3 shooting. He is here because he's a big-bodied wing, but his shooting does go down into the 60s on free throws, so I do wonder how true of a percentage that 40% three-point shooting is. Which one is the biggest question mark to you that you just cannot wait to see the first few games of next season to really know what MSU is cooking with here?
I think the easy answer is Trey Fort. I really do. Yeah. And it's because I think he has the widest range of outcomes. So you could argue that Fort maybe is the highest upside add they've had. I would argue he's also the lowest floor of the 3 that they've added. Okay. I will preface this by saying I love the other 2 ads for what they're being brought in to do. Like I think Kaleb Glenn is just likely a top 3 or 4 player on this team next year, who's really positionally versatile and not a ton of question marks with. He's very good. Yeah. I think Divine Ugochukwu is essentially the perfect backup point guard you could have added. You're not going to ask him to do more than that. We know what he is. I think Trey Fort is going to be asked to do some things that I'm just skeptical that he's capable of. And I made a big, I don't want to say argument, because I wasn't trying to argue against the Trey Fort ad, but before he committed to Michigan State, I sort of laid out this case where guys that come from the Samford system, the buckyball, crazy, frantic, up and down Jack 3 system, have pretty much across the board been disasters. Not just bad, but like unplayable disasters for whatever role they were brought into. And it includes some guys who just profile-wise were significantly better than Trey Fort is. So there is this element of that gimmicky system that I just sort of look at like, this is so different from what Michigan State does. We have no idea what Trey Fort really is. We know he can shoot the basketball. We know he has some flair as a scorer, but how it's going to translate just is a massive question mark. And point blank, I think he was brought in to replace everything at the shooting guard spot. And you can say you believe in Kurtang, but the reality is when Trey Holloman departed, you now lost Jay Nakins, who was a huge part of this team. You lost your lottery pick, and you now lose the guy who was going to step into their shoes. You needed an impact player at the position. And the bottom line is we don't know if Trey Fort will be that. If he is, he's going to have the best year of any of the transfers. But I think there's a lot of reasons to believe he might not be.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's an in-game shot or, hey, a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than with FanDuel. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, guys, some of my favorite ways to get in on the action is with not just the first basket scorer of the game this playoffs, but method of first basket. So I want everyone to close their eyes, dream with me here. Chet Holmgren, not just to score the first point of the next game the OKC Thunder play, but from the free throw line. 110-1 odds is what I got him at last game, and I'm feeling good about it for the next time around here. So, guys, if you're a new customer to FanDuel, it gets even sweeter for you. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, because if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. That's why when it comes to the Divine Ugochukwu talk, like, you're not going to get a perfect guy out of the portal, especially when you're selling, like, hey, you're going to be a backup here. Like, you're never going to find a guy that just doesn't have a flaw in his game. I'm interested in the flaw that they settled with, though, which was shooting, because, yes, you do lose all those guys. And, while Trey Holloman was just a 30% shooter, same with Jaden Akins, at least they had a history and had to be respected from behind the arc enough where there was going to be spacing on the floor. And now, yes, it is just Trey Fort. It is a big question mark with Kurt Tang. You don't really know what you're going to get. And now you got Divine Ugochukwu, a guy that shot 17% from three. So, wow. That's going to be interesting with the spacing, but even with all that said, Greg, it sounds like you're still convinced that Divine was the right kind of point guard they should have gotten, a guy that's more athletic, a guy that's a plus on defense. So that gets a passing grade from you with the Divine Ugochukwu pickup.
It does, and largely because I accepted the premise of what Michigan State was looking for with him. Like, if I throw that premise out the window, the premise of we want a guy who will be happy playing 10 minutes a game behind Jeremy Fears.
Tough sell. Yeah.
Right. Like,
right.
Who wants that? And yeah. I remember it, it's hard because I do believe in Jeremy Fears. I do. Mm-hmm. And I spent most of last season arguing that what was best for Michigan State was less Jeremy Fears. And I think Michigan State fans largely interpreted that as like some huge indictment on what I believe in him. It was much more the fact that I recognized Jace was special and not going to be here very long. And you had Akins, who was never going to come off the floor for the most part, and Holloman was good too. It just weren't too many minutes to go around. So I think, like, long-term, weirdly enough, Jeremy Fears is the guy this season is going to fall on. And I'm a lot more optimistic for him kind of working on next year's team that I think is more catered toward him being the centerpiece of it than him kind of fitting in as a fifth guy with all of these vets and a lottery pick who kind of was ahead of schedule. There's a clear sell for the archetype of like ball screen dominant guy. Just lead us and be our guy. And Fears is going to be asked to do that. And the hard part with it is I think you could have convinced a lot of people to sign up for that if Jeremy Fears was just better, point blank. Like if we're talking Braden Smith, come back up Braden Smith for a year, and then we'll go from there. Sure. There's a lot of people who would sign up for that. But Jeremy Fears has 3 years left. Yep. The reality is he hasn't been that good yet. And not many players are going to want to sign up with multiple years of eligibility to be behind that in the pecking order. So given all of those kind of self-inflicted restraints on what they were looking for, I think Divine's as good as you could have possibly done. I do think there's legitimate upside with him. I thought I saw flashes from both a defensive perspective and an athleticism perspective offensively. And quite frankly, he is very similar to Fears in terms of what he wants to do on the basketball court. Yeah. What better guy to learn from than Fears? So we'll see how it works. But again, you kind of got to accept that premise because there's an argument to be made like Michigan State needed more impact players than this. And if you go by that religion, then it's hard to say you love the Divine ad.
I just wonder how I would view this offseason. Like, totally candidly speaking, like just trying to remove my brain from my own head. Like, how would I look at this offseason if Michigan State didn't have that year in the Big Ten? Like, if they didn't win it by 3 games, like they didn't go to the Elite Eight. And, of course, it's hard because they did win it by a considerable amount. But let's say they finished, like, third, Greg. Like, they went 14-6 in the conference. Yes, they made it the Elite Eight, but you don't hang banners for the Elite Eight. Like, would I be looking at this a little differently? Because it is hard to say, even with everything laid out in front of us, that like, oh, Tom doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he just won this conference by 3 games. And Tom we trust, I feel like, is where we have to go with our talking points here. So I don't even know if there's a question on that. I'm just doing like a brain exercise here of like, would this feel a lot different? Not just a little different, but a lot different should they not have hung a banner last year? And it may be because, oh boy, that is a gamble you're taking with, a transfer from Samford, a backup guy for Miami. So
it's totally fair. And I've done the same exercise. And look, I was along with Carter, by the way, just so there was some Michigan State representation of it. But like for 3 years, we were his loudest critics. Like,
sure. Yeah.
We just flat out said this was never going to happen again. You're not going to build a competitive roster by kind of lowballing players. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say Michigan State doesn't pay people. I know they paid to keep Coen, but they know where they're shopping. They're shopping in the bargain bin of the transfer portal. They're not shopping in the highest paid route. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it is that way. And the reality is Tom Izzo has earned people like me shutting up and giving him belief because of what happened last year. And I think you're right. If it wasn't so dominant, because let's be real, Michigan was like tied with you guys with a month left, and you just flat out punked them. Like there was no doubt left that Michigan State ran this league last year. And in the fashion that it happened, it really served as Tom Izzo just being like, everybody shut up. I got this. Never speak on me leaving again. This is my program. And I do think, weirdly enough, now we're getting philosophical. But like, as a rival fan, truly, there is an argument to be made that we will fast forward 5 years, and how dominant Michigan State was last year may have prolonged the inevitable, as crazy as that sounds, because last year happened because Jace was so ahead of schedule. And if Kerr Tang becomes Jace 2.0, or if Trey Fort becomes, Tyson Walker, then maybe we have that conversation again. But it's not exactly the most replicable formula to do what Michigan State did last year,
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, I feel like I'm just caught in the middle right here. And luckily we have X amount of months until the season starts where I can, form a final opinion before the ball tips off here. But like in my own little silo with no windows, I'm just here watching, highlights from the season last year. Hey, this was great. Yeah, you lost some players, but I see the vision with these 3 guys that they've added. I think it's a positive offseason. But then like I take the ladder up, I peek my head outside the silo and I look around and I see, programs like yours, Greg, or I see, Purdue, I see Wisconsin adding just bangers and bangers with the transfers. It's like, it might be a little greener out there, actually. So I don't know. Again, the only conclusion I can come to right now on May 27th, as I'm recording this, is in Tom we trust because, well, he just delivered greatness last year. So it'd be really silly to say, like, no, I completely doubt it. I'm just 60-40 on the positive side right now. That's where my little needle is right now.
Which is totally fair, and not to, like, hijack the show, but I have a question I want to ask you in light of this.
Yeah.
Like, I think in Tom we trust is the right outlook, clearly after last year. But over the course of the portal era, I think for the most part in Tom we trust has included like more retention than most programs have. Like you haven't had to deal with surprise transfers.
Right.
And for the first time this year, that happened with Trey Holloman. And I think for me, if Holloman was back in the fold, I would fully 100% be able to be like, good offseason.
Sure.
Everything worked. But without him, it is a little bit like, well, did we really replace him? And again, Fort is good enough to be a Holloman replacement. We know that. But Fort can't really replace both Holloman and Jace in my head.
Correct.
So
right.
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, how about this for like a dumb fan brain take right here? Like, it's not just what Trey did on the court. It's not what he did in the box scores. Like, hey, those moments where he had 3 threes in a row, yes, those were awesome. Very hard to replicate. But just being the heartbeat of this team, and I'm sorry to get, just so whimsical and, off the box score about it, but truly, like, that was your captain going into next year. That was, in a lot of ways, the heartbeat of your team. So with what you're losing as a player, it depends what stretch of games you want to look at. You can convince yourself that, he's replaceable, sure, whatever. But then you get the Michigan game, the Minnesota game where he drilled a few threes, and it's like, oh, no, we are missing a good player. So I almost just wonder, what Michigan State misses with Trey between the ears, firing the team up like he did at Iowa, or just what he did against Michigan that senior day. I do wonder how big of a step back Michigan State takes in that regard, if that makes sense. But that could just be so just fairy tale thought of me to just even get so hung up on that. But
no, makes sense. I certainly never want to see him on a court again, ever. Like that dude. He single-handedly owned Michigan in both games.
It was great.
And then let us know after about it too. So, but it'll be interesting to watch because I think the real hope, it all comes back to this, is truly on Jeremy Fears. He needs to pick up the leadership element, and he needs to pick up the on-court element. And if he does, you guys will be fine.
So we do have a nice player coming back. It goes by the name of Coen Carr. And Greg, something's happened this offseason where, during the Moneyball sessions, this is where it really starts to pick up, where you start daydreaming about how good a player can be. This has been sped up, though, for Coen Carr, because on Twitter, we've seen the clips of him breaking that rim in that rec gym run that he had the other day. Any clip that you see of Coen Carr just gets you excited even before Moneyball can roll around here. So while we're on the doorstep of the NBA lottery coming up next month, can Coen Carr actually be a lottery pick in 2026? Now, I will say this. It is tough for juniors to be drafted in the lottery. In the last 4 drafts, only 6 upperclassmen have been drafted. Davion Mitchell, Chris Duarte in 2021, Jalen Williams, Ochai Agbaji in 2022. No one in 2023. That was all young guys. And then last year's draft, Zach Edey and Devin Carter. So while he has that working against him, here's what he has working for him. He's got a 51.5-inch vertical. That is 8 inches higher than anyone at this year's NBA Combine. He was over 70% finisher at the rim. And yes, 5 of 15 on threes isn't going to get you in the NBA three-point contest anytime soon, but that was proof, especially with it all happening at the end of the season, that a shot could be coming here. So, Greg, the 2026 NBA draft, does he go in the first 14 picks? Is this a vision that you are buying here, or is this another green tinted glasses thing that we're saying right now?
It's not. I'd be pretty shocked. And I don't think that's hating on Coen whatsoever, by the way.
It's hard. It is.
Yeah, it's very, there's very different lenses of how people view Coen, and I understand why Michigan State fans believe in him so much. He's probably like a top 5 most fun to have on your team guy.
Top 2. It's great. I love it.
So I totally get it. Like, we should stretch our imagination on what he could potentially be, because if he added some things, there is an NBA athlete there, obviously. But I think the reality is he's a 6'5" power forward. He's the size of an NBA shooting guard.
Yeah.
And he doesn't rebound like a college power forward right now. And I think part of that was literally that Izzo wants him leaking out and getting those 20-point dunks he talks about. But, if he was just going to be drafted off the athleticism, he would have been in that mix as a freshman, because his athleticism hasn't gotten demonstratively better from what it was when he was in high school. I'm sure he's improved, but he was this level athlete on paper before he got to Michigan State.
Right.
And as far as I know, he's still pretty far outside the NBA draft conversation. Now, I will say Coen got a lot better at a lot of things last year. There was that stretch where he made 20 straight free throws over a 3-week stretch.
Great times. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was hitting threes in that. I don't know what got into him, but it's not going to be just a jumper. He's got to really get the rebounding numbers to reflect the athleticism that he has. He's got to develop some off the dribble stuff. And the truth is, next year's draft class is pretty awesome too. So he's got a long way to go to get into the lottery. But, if he can just put together a good, maybe where he's a second option on this Michigan State team type season, then NBA teams will at least start to take him seriously as a potential draftee.
I know we're running late on time here. Do you got time for another question or two, or you got to split?
Yeah.
Because you know what? You mentioned the 20-point dunks. This is a conversation we've had a lot on here. It's like anytime he dunks, it's worth double. Anytime he does this, and that, it is worth way more than the actual number of points. So what is the most, rewarding thing that Coen Carr can do in a game? Is it a dunk? Is it a block? Or is it a three-pointer? Because I think that his three-pointers are worth 9 points just because they're just so unexpected and exciting that, wow, that really shifted the paradigm of this entire game. So as exciting as the dunks are, which I've seen those single-handedly shift the vibe of a game, Man, those 3-pointers from Coen Carr, it just seems like seeing a unicorn in person. It's great, so I'm going to go with that.
I will say, as a rival fan, you don't get mad about the dunks because you know that's
it is what it is. Right?
Yeah, it's like, this is just fun to watch. Wow. Right. But when he hits a 3, you're like, F off, man.
Yes.
That's not supposed to happen. So I would probably say the same. I think it's a 3-pointer, but yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for Coen this year on a serious note because like he has been the quintessential program guy, and I think to contrast him with what we were saying with Holloman, I think if he wanted to seek them out, he would have had the same opportunity that Holloman did to just go get a paycheck and get a promised role. That we know that's not how Tom Izzo operates, but instead, like he kind of doubled down on the patience that he's already put in. He's going to be a starter this year, and we'll see. Like now it's all within his own realm of control here, and I'm excited to see what it looks like because when it is rolling, he's, like I said, the most fun player in the sport.
He is a joy. No, we are blessed to have him in East Lansing. We're in the green and white here. Greg, one more, just to clean up all the slop for everything we've missed with basketball in the last few days here, is that, yes, Michigan State, they added East Carolina to the non-conference schedule here, part of the Fort Myers Tip-Off Classic, Invitational Bonanza, whatever they are calling that tournament. But of the 4 non-conference games that are set in stone right now, East Carolina, Kentucky in the Champions Classic, North Carolina, and then, Duke at Breslin Center. Which one do you have your eye on the most right now? Even before we really know anything about any of these teams, what we do know is that Duke, everyone's going to be over 6'8" on that team. That's why I think that's the one I have my eye on. It's not just even, they are playing in East Lansing. That's going to be a great atmosphere. I'm just excited to see how this Michigan State team matches up against a team, not just this talented, but my God, the size on Duke this year is going to be a sight to behold. So that's why I got to go with the Blue Devils here. But are you going to cut against the grain, say East Carolina? You want to see Pirates, Spartans on your television as soon as possible, Greg?
I'm not. I think Duke is the only answer, and partially because it's at the Breslin Center. How cool is that? Also, something historically Duke has been terrified to schedule. So not just Michigan State specific. They don't want to go play anybody on the road. Right. So it's kind of rare that Michigan State gets that opportunity. I'm sure that will be a crazy environment. We know that the Izzone can get rocking for a game like that, but no, Duke's fun. They're unique. They've got the twin brothers, Cam Boozer, who is like the winningest top 3 freshmen incoming. I know people like DeBansa and Peterson, but Cam Boozer's just been beating them at every event for roughly 7 years. His little brother's probably going to start at point guard, Caden. They got an NBA pick back and Isaiah Evans. They'll be the best team on Michigan State's schedule outside of Purdue this year. And then I think the one note I would have on the others is that both Kentucky and North Carolina are sneaky winnable games this year.
A lot of turnover there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Kentucky, they're still waiting on one more NBA draft decision. But outside of that, it's like 95% new minutes. And North Carolina lost nearly everything intentionally so.
Right. I think 8 new players for Carolina is what I have written down. It's a massive question mark for both these teams.
Yeah. I think there's a real good chance Michigan State could go 2-1 out of that 3-game Blue Bloods run and be feeling great about themselves before conference play.
And 3-1 if you beat the mighty Pirates of East Carolina. So look at us thrive. There we go. Well, Greg, thanks a lot for hopping on and not just, joining us, lending us your expertise, your insight, but also your time, man. Thanks a lot. Much appreciated. Anything you want to plug here before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day here?
No, man. Sleepers Media is where you can find Cart and I. We're still doing daily stuff, even in the offseason right now, having a lot of fun with it.
Grinding, absolutely. No, you guys are the best. Much appreciated. And same with all the viewers, all the listeners. You guys are the best too. Take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.